You're a little half-wit, and you'll make your little followers
don't get rattled.
have a little laugh and everything else. But there's any point wasting. There's no point me wasting my time talking to you. Is there? What's the point?
Exactly. No. Do you know what? Let's chill it down then, because what I just said, there's 50 more things that we can have a stupid back and forth and try and one up each other.
I don't
just
care
talk
about
to
your
me
silly
normally.
insults.
Talk to me normally. Talk to me normally.
I don't care about your silly insults.
But what do you mean you don't care? What do you mean you don't care? What I said is facts. I have a picture of it. I can flip it around and show you right now.
I couldn't care less about your silly little insults. It's like a 2-year-old. Why would I care?
A 2-year-old. A 2-year-old. Listen, sir, I don't know why you come on and you talk like you're holier than thou. As soon as you're away,
all right, let's end this.
Applications are open.
All right, let's just
that's your ting, bro. That's your girl.
Let's end this, please.
Cooked.
You know what? I'm not doing this. Sorry, guys. It's pointless.
Louis Theroux has been making documentaries for 30 years. He's very good at what he does. Inside the Manosphere, his first Netflix film. It's a decent documentary. I want to be clear about that before I say what comes next. Because what comes next is this. Louis Theroux is doing exactly what he's documenting. He has found an audience. He gave them what they wanted. He got paid. The difference between him and the men in his film is production values and a BBC accent. The mechanism is identical. That is not an attack on Theroux. It is an observation about the content economy that all of us, including this channel, are operating inside. The Manosphere influencers found a paying audience, lonely young men looking for certainty and somebody to blame. They built a product around that audience and they serve it. Theroux found a paying audience, people who want to watch extreme men being quietly exposed by a mild-mannered British documentarian. Netflix paid for it because that audience is large and willing to click. Both are getting paid for it. The question neither answers is whether either of them is doing anything useful for the boys who are actually in trouble. Okay, so the debate that Theroux facilitated, the conversation that followed the documentary was largely man bad, and at its worst, boy bad. Basically, toxic feminist mirror content. The Manosphere says women are the problem, and the response says men are the problem. Both are profitable positions. Both are wrong. And neither helps a 15-year-old boy who was lost and looking for something real. This video is a response to the documentary, not a takedown, and I do have a 2-1 in psychology and lots of life experience. Theroux got some things right, and he paid superficial attention to most other things. There were harder questions he did not pursue that matter more than anything that he showed. So what did Theroux get right? Theroux's strength has always been access. He gets into rooms other journalists cannot because the subjects trust that he will let them speak. And they consistently underestimate what that means. The moment with Justine Waller's partner Kristen is the best thing in the film. Waller has 2 children with her, a third on the way. She's not legally his wife because of the financial side. Theroux surfaces that detail quietly, and Waller changes the subject before she can think too long about it. Theroux earns his keep in that room. His own diagnosis of what drives the audience is also honest. Quote, I think a lot of boys and men are lost. And when they see a muscular guy who seems to be very rich, telling them it's not your fault and here who's to blame, then that's massively appealing. Perhaps most especially when you're only 15, 16, 17 years old. That's a Louis Theroux quote, March 2026, Netflix. And it stops exactly where the harder question starts. Next, I'll look at the subjects more carefully. First, Harrison Sullivan, HSTikkyTokky. Harrison Sullivan is 24, British, raised in Essex by his mother alone. His father, England rugby international Victor Ubogu, was absent for most of his childhood. His mother worked long hours to put him through private school. He dropped out of Birmingham University to create content. He is now in Marbella, living in an expensive villa, running what the Financial Conduct Authority listed in 2024 as an unauthorised investment firm. Theroux frames the absent father as a wound, and Sullivan confirms it in his own footage. He didn't reply for 10 years, then tells Theroux, almost in the same breath, that if there is any trauma, it is probably subconscious. He genuinely doesn't know. The documentary treats this as pathos and moves on, but I want to look at what it actually produced. I'm going to talk briefly about what the absence of masculine modelling produces. Men provide something specific in a household, not just income or protection, but a mode of thinking, objective, planful, future orientated, discipline that comes from presence, not from instruction. Harrison Sullivan shows every sign of someone that has never had that modelled for him. He's reactive, he's not planful, emotional, not objective, living for the performance of the present moment, the villa, the live stream, the confrontation, with no visible structure underneath. That is not masculine behaviour. It is, in cognitive terms, the opposite. A man who plans objectively does not blow money on a Marbella villa while the FCA is watching his financial product. And that's not me criticising Harrison as a young man, it's me as an older man trying to give him some insights that he can choose to ignore about where I think, having seen him for about an hour in my life on Louis Theroux's show, about what he needs to reflect on, what he needs to take forwards. But I will go a little bit further into why I think he's presenting the persona that he is on TV, and why that may not necessarily be him as a real person. We will touch on that a little bit later. Anyway, September 2025, after the documentary was filmed, Sullivan announced he was expecting a child with influencer Lily Mae. But in November 2025, Lily Mae confirmed on a podcast that she was never pregnant. There was no relationship, and the entire thing was a marketing stunt. Read that again. A man who presents himself as an authority on masculinity and what men are and what women are, faked a pregnancy for social media traction. That is not a traditional masculine act. That is not objective, planful decision making. That is a teenage boy's idea of content. Reactive, emotional, optimized for the present moment, with no thought for the consequences. It's the absent father's legacy on full public display. Then there's the Piers Morgan incident. Sullivan appeared on Piers Morgan Uncensored on March the 18th, 2026. About 15 minutes into a heated debate about the Manosphere, he pulled up a 2022 Instagram photo of Piers Morgan's wife, Celia Walden, lounging by a pool next to a sign reading, "Wanted, pool boy, no experience needed." He effectively called Morgan a cuck and taunted him repeatedly. "That's your ting, bro. That's your girl." Morgan reached his limit. "Let this end, please. I'm not doing this," and walked off his own show. Sullivan posted the clip immediately, laughing, claiming he had cooked Morgan and made him rage quit. But look at what Sullivan did in that room more carefully. The incident is worth a brief mention here, not because of what Sullivan did to Piers, but because of what it reveals about the audience that cheered. The clip was the point. The performance was the product. No one was interested in the unanswered questions about the FCA listing or the fake pregnancy. The son who cannot objectively plan, cannot build on a long horizon, and measures success by the reaction of the room. Theroux named the wound. He did not name what it produces, and nobody answered the third question. Why was Victor Ubogu not in the mother's life? And as a society, are we too quick to form parents before they have formed a solid relationship? The accountability question runs in every direction. Next, Myron Gaines from Fresh and Fit. Theroux focused on Myron and his one-way monogamy arrangement. He can see other women, but his girlfriend cannot see other men. He gets visibly uncomfortable when Theroux asks Angie directly. That discomfort is real, and Theroux earns it. As the documentary itself showed, Angie ultimately left. I'm going to talk briefly about the Fresh and Fit bubble. The guest model is not random. Almost exclusively OnlyFans creators and social media personalities. Women the show can frame as evidence of its worldview, that women are transactional, that they sell access, that their presence validates the host's theories about female nature. But it's a closed ecosystem. It's a bubble. The guests perform, the hosts perform, the audience watches a debate that was cast, not discovered. Whether the hosts actually believe their own worldview or are simply serving a paying audience is largely unknowable from the outside. Probably both simultaneously. They found a format that pays and they run it, which, returning to the opening, is exactly what Louis Theroux is doing. There is also a cultural dimension that the documentary did not name. Myron, born Amrou Fudul, is a Sudanese-American Muslim. Harvard Islamic Studies scholar Avad Hashmi has identified him as part of a group of Muslim male influencers who position themselves against Western values whilst building Western-style celebrity brands. The view that he promotes, that women should not vote, should not serve in the military, is a specific blend of Islamic conservatism and American hustle culture. That context matters for the boys watching and deciding what masculinity means. Next, Justin Waller. The documentary did not ask Kristen, his partner, whether she also wanted an open relationship or whether the terms were simply presented to her. Kristen is an adult. Her answer would have been the most revealing moment in the film. Adults who enter arrangements with known terms are responsible for those terms. The problem is when there's deceit, not when there's explicit stated terms that both agree to. And then there's Sneeko, an avid Trump supporter, media savvy, performing for his own audience as much as for Theroux's camera. The views are real, but his primary product is conflict. The documentary opens that question and does not resolve it, which is itself a form of superficiality. So next I'm going to go into what the documentary did not pursue. So what was missing? The algorithm. How a 14-year-old gets from fitness tips to women shouldn't vote in 11 recommended videos. Why it matters. YouTube and TikTok optimize for engagement. Outrage outperforms nuance every time. The radicalization pathway is not incidental. It's the platform's business model. Theroux noted it briefly, but then moved on quickly. So what else was missing? The business model, content as a funnel, dependency on retention. Why it matters. Courses, coaching, supplements, community membership. The misogyny creates dependency. The audience returns for confirmation that their difficulties are somebody else's fault. The FCA flagged Sullivan's scheme as unauthorised. The outrage is the acquisition cost. The documentary covered the scheme, but not the integrated model. Next, the political connection. Manosphere to MAGA to culture war funding. Sneeko is an explicit Trump supporter. Fresh and Fit hosted Nick Fuentes multiple times. The culture war funding networks, Heritage Foundation, Atlas Network, create a pipeline from Manosphere to political radicalization. But the documentary did not make this connection. Next, women's voices. The documentary did not touch any women who have been harassed by these communities. No researchers, no mothers of affected boys. Theroux is mildly discombobulated on behalf of women. That is not the same thing as including them. So next I'll look at what would actually help. The mainstream response to the Manosphere is to point out the influences are ridiculous, and some of them are. But this is the wrong tool for the actual problem. These men found an audience and served it. The content is largely a persona, calibrated for engagement, not necessarily for a window into conviction. When you mock the influencer, you confirm every claim they made about mainstream contempt for men who struggle. The boys watching do not see ridicule, they see proof. And the man bad, boy bad response, the toxic feminist mirror of the Manosphere's divisiveness, is just as profitable and just as useless. Both sides are giving their audiences what they want, but neither is doing anything for the boy who is actually lost. The answer to this male toxicity is the same as the answer to female toxicity. It is raising children from the beginning to recognise it and make appropriate decisions. Healthy masculinity is recognisable. But who teaches a boy what a man looks like if men are excluded from the house? Or if the mother chose too quickly and the relationship broke down before the young boy had the modelling he needed? Accountability starts upstream. It starts with choosing a life partner with judgment and care, not urgency, not attraction alone. Choosing poorly produces broken homes. Broken homes produce boys who do not get objective thinking modelled by a present father. That is not a condemnation of single mothers, but it is an honest account of what presence provides that absence cannot replicate. The cycle does not start with the influencer. It started with the choices that produced the audience. So the cycle. Boys without male role models turning to influencers who offer identity at the price of contempt for others. So what breaks it? Fathers who are present and engaged. Not perfect, present. Their presence provides the objective, planful, future-orientated modelling that emotional reactivity alone cannot supply. The cycle. Poor partner selection, choosing quickly, on attraction alone without judgment. And what breaks it? Adults taking partner selection seriously as the most consequential decision they will ever make, not just for themselves, but also for the children who will be raised in the home that the choice has created. Next, the algorithm amplifying extreme content to the most vulnerable teenagers. So we need to change platform accountability, transparency in recommendation systems, liability for documented radicalization pathways. The algorithm is not neutral and should not be treated as such. Next, taking accountability for recognised problems, the norm at every level from the influencer to the response. So what breaks it? Accountability at every stage, in partner selection, in presence, in how you respond when you have failed. The cycle only breaks when someone in it stops passing it on. So in finishing, Louis Theroux made a decent documentary, not his best work. He did not get underneath much at all in my point of view, but he did facilitate a debate, and that has value. Even if the debate that followed was largely the wrong one. The Manosphere is not for unusual men on the show. It's a machine. It's built on an algorithm. It's funded by a content economy connected to political infrastructure that profits from the loneliness of boys who are looking for something real and being sold something that looks like it. Harrison Sullivan is 24 years old. His father did not reply for 10 years. His mother worked long hours and put him through private school. He dropped out of university. He moved to Marbella, built an expensive life on a scheme the regulator has flagged. faked a pregnancy for social media attraction. None of that behaviour is of a man who has objective thinking. All of it is the behaviour of someone who is still, at 24, reacting to a 10-year silence he says is probably something subconscious. And he is passing the pattern on to an audience of boys who are in exactly the same position as he was at 15, looking for certainty, looking for community, for someone who looks like they figured it out. The content economy, Theroux and the Manosphere alike, does not break that cycle, it monetizes it. What breaks it is a present father, a mother who chooses carefully, a boy who had objective thinking modelled for him before the algorithm filled the gap. That does not get clicked, it does not trend, but it is what changes the outcomes. If this made you think, like and subscribe, share it. The algorithm that amplifies the Manosphere is the same one we're working against. The first hour is crucial. Thank you very much.